When it comes to all of the different characters reimagined by Marvel Comics during the height of their Ultimate Universe, there are many notable examples that spring to mind. From the almost universally praised Ultimate Spider-Man, the polarizing Ultimates, and the quite often underrated Ultimate Fantastic Four, this alternate version of Marvel's long-running comic book universe was home to a number of significant reinventions of classic and beloved superheroes. However, one character whose Earth 1610 counterpart I think has largely been forgotten is that of Daredevil. Originally created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett, Matt Murdock has been a fan favourite ever since he first appeared in April 1964, bringing a gritty and grounded approach to Marvel's often larger-than-life storytelling, and combining it with a tragic backstory and an incredibly complex moral crusade for justice. Given Daredevil's longevity and frequent popularity, one would assume that the company would seek to integrate the hero into their blossoming Ultimate Universe during the early 2000s, creating a unique interpretation of the Man Without Fear that would resonate with a whole new generation of fans. However, while Daredevil did make several appearances throughout a number of different Ultimate comics, this universe's depiction of the hero truly left a lot to be desired, with the character being heavily overshadowed and forgotten about by writers and editorials for numerous years. In truth, the story of Ultimate Daredevil is very much that of a major missed opportunity, and in this video I want to explain the history of just how this character came to be, discuss the origins and original ideas for this new take on Matt Murdock, and try to figure out where exactly things went wrong, and what led to the Man Without Fear ultimately being forgotten. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. The Ultimate Marvel Universe was birthed into existence in the year 2000, the brainchild of then Marvel Vice President Bill Jemas and Editor-in-Chief Joe Quesada. With Marvel Comics being only a handful of years removed from filing for bankruptcy, the company sought new ways to turn their fortunes around, deciding to launch a brand new separate imprint of comic books that would reimagine their most popular characters in a modern setting. The writer tasked with telling the first story in this new universe was Brian Michael Bendis, who, alongside artist Mark Bagley, ushered readers into this fresh new world in the pages of Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1 in September of 2000. Now, Ultimate Spider-Man became an instant success for Marvel Comics, with the company soon after greenlighting a whole host of other titles starring a number of their other flagship characters. However, while the likes of the X-Men, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four would all later receive their own Ultimate books, Marvel also aimed to flesh out the universe with a separate comic that would introduce readers to a whole host of other characters, in the form of Ultimate Marvel Team-Up. Beginning in April of 2001, Ultimate Marvel Team-Up would be written by Bendis again, and centred around one-off adventures with Spider-Man as he encounters various other heroes and groups not yet seen in any of the other Ultimate comic books. These included the likes of the Hulk and Iron Man, years before their appearances in Mark Millar and Brian Hitch's The Ultimates, as well as Doctor Strange and Daredevil. Alongside artist Bill Sienkiewicz, Daredevil's Ultimate debut would come in the pages of Ultimate Marvel Team-Up issue 7, as part of a 3-issue story that saw he and Spider-Man face off against the Punisher. This book not only introduces Frank Castle as an ex-New York police officer whose family were killed by other corrupt cops, but also sees the vigilante escape from Rikers Island, attempting to hunt down the officers responsible for his family's death. Hearing that Punisher was on the loose, one of Frank's targets seeks help from his lawyer, who would be revealed to be Matt Murdock. Believing that the Punisher is a danger, Murdock dons his Daredevil costume and tries to apprehend the Punisher, eventually teaming up with Spider-Man to take the vigilante down and return him to prison. While only a brief introduction to the Man Without Fear, this story does give readers their first taste of Ultimate Daredevil. However, like many of the other first appearances in Ultimate Marvel Team-Up, the character feels almost identical to his main universe counterpart. Although the Punisher's backstory receives some changes for this new status quo, Matt Murdock is virtually indistinguishable from his Earth 616 counterpart, meaning that while readers can quickly familiarise themselves with this version of the hero, there's very little to make him stand out from any other Daredevil we've ever seen before. Nevertheless, this story would provide a solid foundation for Daredevil's adventures in the Ultimate Universe, and leave readers keen to learn more about this new depiction of the hero. From here, Daredevil would next next appear in a 4-issue miniseries titled Ultimate Daredevil and Elektra, written by Greg Rucka with art by Salvador Larroca. This comic would serve as an origin story for both Matt Murdock and Elektra, as we see the duo attend Columbia University together as they both begin their vigilante careers. Now, this series does attempt to distance Daredevil's backstory from the modern origin of the character introduced by Frank Miller, omitting the hero's mentor, Stick, and instead presenting a more grounded and realistic interpretation of his early years. Likewise, Elektra's origin has been updated too, with the character now no longer the daughter of a rich ambassador and not being trained by the Hand. This series very much focuses itself around the romance between Matt and Elektra, as well as explaining the different paths that they would go down in later years. We see the two characters being driven apart by the contrasting ideology, with Elektra attempting to hunt down the man who assaulted one of her friends and get revenge, while Matt begs her to seek justice through the law. Although this comic does give us glimpses of Daredevil's black costume, as he dons it when first becoming the Man Without Fear, it's overall a book that focused more on fleshing out the character of Elektra than it does on Daredevil himself. Overall though, Ultimate Daredevil and Elektra was received relatively well, and as such, a sequel comic entitled just Ultimate Elektra would be released in 2004. As the name suggests, this book was more focused on Elektra's battle with the Kingpin, as although she would later end up working for the villain in the present day, here she finds herself and her family in the crosshairs of Wilson Fisk. Now, this war between Elektra and Kingpin would result in Bullseye being hired to take Elektra out, causing her to reconnect with Daredevil and work together to defeat him. While admittedly a fairly well written and well drawn miniseries, the comic does very little to really further either character's arc, with both Matt and Elektra ending this book in almost the same places they did in the previous series, with Daredevil in particular feeling frequently overshadowed and underutilized in both comics. And honestly, that there is the story of Ultimate Daredevil for the first few years of his run. While the character was introduced alongside other notable heroes like Spider-Man and the Punisher, and was featured in both Ultimate X-Men and 2 miniseries alongside Elektra, he was never really able to garner much momentum and fully establish his place within the Ultimate continuity. By the mid-2000s, where other heroes had now got well fleshed out character arcs and were very much presented as being distinct interpretations from their Earth 616 counterparts, Ultimate Daredevil often just felt like Daredevil, but now being written alongside other more established Ultimate Marvel heroes. This would prove to be incredibly frustrating for long-time Daredevil fans. However, many would hope that the character's fortunes were about to change, as Matt Murdock began to make appearances in more high-profile comics such as The Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man. However, all would not be well with the hero as these stories unfolded, and the question of Daredevil's future began to give readers plenty to be fearful of.
Hey, did I hear someone talking about Daredevil? Matt Draper here. Daredevil fan. Definitely not actually Daredevil. But when it comes to Daredevil in Ultimate Marvel, what exactly happened here? Thanks to the limited number of titles being published at any given time in the Ultimate line, Daredevil was largely relegated to supporting player, background character, or miniseries lead. In issue number 3 of Mark Millar and Brian Hitch's Ultimates 2, Matt appears as Bruce Banner's defense attorney when he's on trial for his rampage in Manhattan. Matt appears in some of the issue with Foggy Nelson, but loses the case off page. But Ultimate Spider-Man Annual number 2, released in October 2006, would act as a prelude to Daredevil's biggest story in the Ultimate Universe. Detective Jean DeWolf talks Spider-Man into going after rising criminal the Kangaroo. It's soon revealed that she's in league with the Kingpin, and while on patrol, Spidey crashes Daredevil's fight in a dive bar. Classic Daredevil. It's important to remember, like most Ultimate characters not named Spider-Man, Ultimate Daredevil is an asshole. And not in a fun, oh Matt you lovable idiot kind of way. Soon, Spidey, Daredevil, Moon Knight, and Punisher brawl as they close in on Kangaroo, with a captured Punisher shooting and killing DeWolf for being a dirty cop. By issue's end, Daredevil approaches Moon Knight with a proposition to create a group to take down Kingpin. The story ends with Fisk sad and alone, waiting for DeWolf, adding humanity to the character, maybe more humanity than has been given to Matt Murdock. This led into the Marvel Knights arc of Ultimate Spider-Man, told from issues 106 through 110, where DD, Moon Knight, Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man join up to take down Fisk for good. Moon Knight will pose as a new bodyguard for Fisk to bring down the organization from the inside. And even though they want to kill Fisk, Spider-Man convinces them not to. But Iron Fist is a double agent for the Kingpin, and the combination of his betrayal, Moon Knight's new ruthless Ronin personality, and continued infighting quickly fracture the team. In the end, Moon Knight willingly turns himself over to the police to testify against Fisk, making Daredevil and Spider-Man look selfish in comparison. Here we find a Matt Murdock who has already been pushed to the edge before we're well acquainted with him. Things like Daredevil saying, "I'm Catholic, I feel guilty," and using the Kingpin's backstory from the then recent Ben Affleck movie are shorthand to establish this character as fast as possible. But Bendis thankfully makes sure that Daredevil is an essential part in the end of his ongoing Kingpin saga, helping to ensure his downfall, with Wilson Fisk only briefly returning years later to be killed by Mysterio. Still, there are some letdowns here. Matt wanting to kill Kingpin or at least Vanessa as vengeance means little when the character has barely been seen beforehand. Vanessa Fisk, Wilson's wife, is shown to be comatose, echoing what had happened to her during Frank Miller's classic Daredevil run. But all of this has to be inferred from old stories. And Elektra is nowhere to be seen. She'd almost been killed by Black Cat and Moon Knight in a previous arc, and was never seen in Ultimate Marvel again, causing all those past issues to have no real payoff. Daredevil and Elektra never meet up in the present day. But this is probably Ultimate Daredevil's best story. After years of infrequent appearances and underwhelming guest spots, it finally seemed like the Man Without Fear was finding his footing in the universe. However, just as quickly as it came, the character's potential and future was unapologetically washed away in Ultimatum. Let's spare us all some pain and not go through the entirety of this event. Really, all you need to know is that in an effort to bring some new life into Ultimate Marvel, Jeff Loeb decided to kill off a bunch of major characters, creating one of the most controversial Marvel storylines of all time. We would see the fallout of Ultimatum in Ultimate Spider-Man number 131, where after Magneto flooded much of New York City, Spider-Man and Hulk try to save as many people as they can, discovering in the wreckage that Daredevil has been killed. Just like any reader with an attachment to the character, Spider-Man is shocked, and says that while Daredevil didn't like him, Spidey admired him and his ability to just do what he needed to do. And so Spider-Man unmasks this corpse, only to not know the identity of the man behind the mask. Okay, so that doesn't make any sense because Peter learned Daredevil's identity in Ultimate Spider-Man number 106, where he met Matt Murdock with no mask on. Both of these issues were written by Brian Michael Bendis. Chalk this one up to Bendis and Ultimate editorial either not remembering or simply not caring. Ultimatum was originally planned to kill off Spider-Man as well, but the poor quality of the event and resistance from Bendis led to his apparent death being a fake-out. Ultimate Spider-Man continued in a new volume, eventually leading to the death of Spider-Man and Miles Morales, which actually gives Peter's death real weight. Because if you just kill off as many characters as possible in a parade of sadism, they stop meaning anything. They're just shock tactics, and Matt Murdock was a casualty of this. The death of Daredevil is an illustration of the wasted potential of so much of Ultimate Marvel. Like many characters, he was given a few moments to shine and largely leveraged as a way to expand a universe that didn't have the number of titles or years of publication necessary to naturally grow. In Ultimate Marvel, if you weren't the name on the title, you were disposable for the sake of subverting expectations in service of a universe that became desperate to differentiate itself from 616 Marvel. Unlike many other characters given new life at the start of Ultimate Marvel, Daredevil wasn't in need of reinvention, as he'd just been given new life in Marvel Knights, which tossed away the majority of his stagnation in the 90s and quickly turned the Man Without Fear into one of the most popular and critically acclaimed characters in the company. While Ultimate Marvel and Ultimate Spider-Man specifically re-energized the publisher, it was Daredevil and the Marvel Knights imprint that had pulled Marvel back from the brink of total collapse just a few years prior, in conjunction with movies like Blade and X-Men. So it's clear that there was no real need for Daredevil in yet another Marvel imprint. But the need for Ultimate Marvel to eventually tackle every pre-existing character in some way means that Daredevil had to be given life eventually. It's the sort of reinvention by force that brought us Ultimate Thanos, Ultimate Galactus, and more characters that broke the #1 rule of ongoing characters. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Ultimate Daredevil was neither broken nor fixed. He was simply there for a few storylines and then tossed onto the rapidly growing pile of the dead.
Like many other heroes that populated the Ultimate Marvel universe, Daredevil would be killed off during Ultimatum, with the character's legacy and unrealised potential being washed away in the flood that killed off so many other characters. In the years following Ultimatum, a number of different writers attempted to use this catastrophic event as a launching pad to introduce many new and original legacy characters, such as Miles Morales becoming the new Spider-Man and Jimmy Hudson emerging as the son of Wolverine and joining a new iteration of the X-Men, whilst the survivors found themselves in unprecedented circumstances as former friends like Reed Richards soon became bitter enemies. Mark Millar, one of the original architects of this comic book universe, returned to the imprint soon after Ultimatum, taking over the Ultimates title and relaunching it in 2009 as Ultimate Comics Avengers. Upon its relaunch, this series aimed to re-establish Earth's mightiest heroes in a world drastically altered by Magneto's shocking attacks, showcasing how the likes of Nick Fury, Captain America, War Machine and Hawkeye all regroup after the incredible and unprecedented losses that they suffered. It's in Millar's third volume of this series, released throughout 2010 and 2011, that Daredevil would make something of a return, albeit with a new person underneath the mask. Alongside artist Lionel Francis Yu, Millar would introduce a new Daredevil in the form of Ray Connor, a teenager who, after suffering an accident that blinded him and gave him sensitive hearing abilities, was discovered and trained by Stick, who was retconned to also have been the secret trainer of Matt Murdock. This story re-establishes the central premise of Daredevil and his allies, as we learn that Stick trained both Ray and Matt to be soldiers in a secret war against an army of vampires. Donning the hero's classic yellow and red costume, Ray would become the second Daredevil in the Ultimate Universe, and fight hordes of vampires alongside Stick, before the fledgling hero is bitten and joins the vampire army. It's this revelation that brings this new Daredevil into conflict with the Ultimates, as the team is confronted by Blade, who asks for their help in stopping the oncoming vampire invasion. This story arc primarily focuses itself around the vampire army and the mysterious leader Anthony, as they recruit not only Daredevil, but a genetically engineered clone of Bruce Banner into their ranks. The vampires attack the Ultimates soon after, with Captain America being bitten during the encounter. While the heroes are able to escape, Cap is knocked unconscious and treated at the Triskelion, with Blade warning them that Anthony let them rescue Steve so that he can infect all of his teammates. As Blade argues with the Ultimates, the Triskelion is suddenly attacked by a swarm of vampires. It's here that we see this new Daredevil face off against all of the different members of the Ultimates. However, this encounter proves to be short-lived, as Captain America resurfaces, now cured of his infection thanks to the super soldier serum, and uses the axe of Perun to transport the vampire army across the world, where they are immediately set ablaze and killed by the sunlight. Although there was some hype and anticipation surrounding the introduction of a new Daredevil, this story clearly wasn't designed to be a showcase for Ray Connor, especially at a time when the Ultimate Universe was focusing so heavily on bringing in new legacy characters. This version of Daredevil honestly feels like a waste, and that its only purpose in existing was to add another somewhat recognisable face to the evil vampire horde. In a lot of ways, Ray's time as Daredevil in the Ultimate Universe is just a condensed version of Matt Murdock's. He's introduced solely for the purpose of adding drama and stakes to other, more well-established heroes' stories, and then cast aside once the writers were done with him, killed off and never being referenced again. And given how successful the Ultimate Comics were in revitalising so many of Marvel's heroes during the early 2000s, it's such a shame that Daredevil was never given the chance to truly craft his own corner of the universe. So many other heroes were rejuvenated thanks to their Ultimate reimaginings, and it isn't hard to imagine how Daredevil could have been successfully adapted into this continuity. However, he was never deemed important enough to be the focal point of any stories he appeared in, instead becoming the casualty of Marvel seeking to rapidly expand the world of Earth 1610 without the care to make every new character they introduced seem truly important. In short, the story of Ultimate Daredevil is more so than anything else one of wasted potential. Throughout the majority of his appearances, he was just one of many heroes, brought into the Ultimate fold for a handful of stories, and then killed off in Ultimatum without a second thought. And for a character that stood the test of time and remained as beloved for generations as Matt Murdock has, I think it's fair to say that Ultimate Daredevil deserved so much better. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on the video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. I want to give a big special thanks to Matt Draper for coming on and helping me out with this video. Matt is tremendous and I will leave links to his channels and his socials in the description, so do go check him out if you're not already following him. If you enjoyed this video though and you want some more, there should be some other videos on screen right now that you might also enjoy. And if you're not subscribed to Owen Likes Comics yet, please do make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you'd like to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can do so over at patreon.com/OwenLikesComics. Or if you just want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter just at Owen Likes Comics. Again, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.